So in this webinar, what Lara and I are going to be covering are secret insights that we feel aren't usually known that are going to be highly profitable to know of. So we're not going to hold back. We're going to give you some real great insights from our industry. So that'll be about 10 past. We might start earlier. Lara will give 3 secrets covering know your target audience. Who are they? What are their needs? And how do they like to be communicated with? Second one, be human. People buy from people. And the third one, follow up and make buying from you easy. And then I'll be giving 3 secrets, which is clear requests. I'll break down what few know a clear request is and how doing so in the right way will ensure extraordinary performance from your team. And accountability. I'll cover what is required from you to ensure your team runs your business whilst you sleep well at night and increase your take-home profits. And finally, acknowledging why this is the most effective form of communication to get your team to achieve the exact results you want from your clients, your law firm, and yourself. So before we get into it, Lara, would you tell us about you? Like,
so I might put my screen, my slides up because I actually have a screen about me. If that's okay, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay, bear with. Oh, and we've got some lovely people joining us. So
yeah, thank you for joining us. Lara is just about to introduce us herself and tell us why we should be listening to Lara.
Thank you, Dan. So why should you be listening to me? Well, recently award-winning, always been award-winning, obviously, Dan, but more recently, even more award-winning. So I'm the director of Consortium Modern Marketing. We're a full-service marketing agency that specialises in the legal service and professional service sector. I'm a chartered marketer and the fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and have been working in professional services, most specifically legal, for over the last 20 years. Starting to make me feel old. I think I was happier when it said 10. But, you know, with age comes experience, they say. So as Dan mentioned, what I'm going to cover, they're probably less secrets, but more things that people need to be reminded on. And I'm very excited to learn Dan's secrets later. But we're going to be talking about knowing your target audience, which is little used in my experience in the legal sector. And about being human. I was at a conference last week for called PM Forum, it's Professional Services Marketing Forum, and they had a panel of people who buy legal services, and actually unanimously, they all said it in slightly different ways, but they were all talking about how they buy the person, not the business, not the skill set. It's really, really about the person and being more than just a lawyer. But we'll talk about that a bit more as we go. Follow up. I wish I could have money every time I said the word follow up, because I'd be a very rich lady, or even the amount of times people don't do it. Again, I'd be very rich. I've got some statistics to share around follow up and just how it can make your life so much easier and more profitable, feeding into Dan's point. I put a section for Q&A, but I know we're going to have time for Q&A at the end of the overall session as well.
Nice. So the reason why we should be listening to you is because you've got 20 years experience. You're often invited to speak to audiences up and down England about marketing, and you specialize in marketing in the legal industry.
Yeah, I think I need you with me all the time. Like, you could just be my wingman shouting about why people need to listen to me. I just assume everyone knows why they need to listen. But yes, you know, I wouldn't say that I have the answers to absolutely everything, but I will give you my experience, and you know, that's 20 years of experience. And just like with the lawyers, they've got all their years of experience and qualifications and study to share their expertise. That's what I'll be doing for you guys. And I think that the real value comes, and Camilla's a client of mine, and she will, I hope, happily tell people, if this is going to sound really dictatorial, but that is kind of how I am. If you do what I tell you to do, it does work. It's only when you don't do it that it doesn't. So it is as simple as that. If you go and apply some of this stuff we're going to talk about this morning, it does and will work.
Right.
Knowing your target audience. Now, the amount of times, and this doesn't necessarily just apply to the legal sector, but if you say to somebody, who do you want to work with? Who do you want to meet? A lot of the time it will be anyone. And yeah, that's okay. But actually, it makes it really difficult for me to help you. If you say, I want to meet anyone that runs a business, oh, I know loads of those. So where do I even start? So being really specific about who you want to work with really helps other people help you. It's also going to make your job, if you're doing your own marketing, so much easier, because you just genuinely can't be all things to all people. And if you don't know who your target audience is, then just go and have a little look at the history. There will probably be some commonality between your historical clients, like maybe you have more females than men, or the other way around. Or it might be that you tend to find people who have the problem that you help people solve are in their 30s or 40s. And once you start answering some of those questions, it will give you a steer on where you should be. So if we use social media, for example, if you were targeting women in their 40s or 30s or 40s, then Instagram might be the place that you should be, because the demographics for Instagram are that. Equally, if you were looking at business owners that are in their 30s, LinkedIn has a big number of people there. So it just really helps you refine where you're going to spend your time and energy. And even more than that, it helps you refine your messaging. I think I'm trying to think of an example. You might even know of one, Dan, but where a brand really knows who its target audience is. Actually, a good example is if you watch. Go on, Dan.
Well, I was just going to say, actually, Laura, that's you. You're exactly that, right? Well, because you speak about marketing within the legal industry. So if I'm looking online and I've got all these people say marketing for businesses, marketing for entrepreneurs, and then I've got marketing for people within the legal industry, instantly you stand out so much more as the go-to person that's going to have that edge and those insights that's going to make all the difference in my investment if I went with you rather than somebody else. That's how powerful it is. Yeah,
definitely. I think niching where you can. I mean, Camilla's going to love coming on this call because I'm going to keep picking on her because she's the one that I know. But Camilla's a criminal lawyer. Now, obviously, she can help people with any type of criminal law, but quite cleverly, because she's very good, is Camilla, she will pick something that she wants to promote. So yes, she could help you with any criminal issue, but she might start talking about people that have had investigations from HMRC and are going down the criminal route, that she can help you there. So you'll go away and think, oh, okay, so if I come across someone like that, I can pass them to Camilla. We all know logically that actually she could help with any criminal issue, but it just helps you think about how you could put someone in touch with her that she might be able to help. If you think about watching soaps on telly, any of the like Coronation Street type soaps, or any soaps that are targeted at women, Strictly doesn't have adverts, but any things that have got adverts, in the advert breaks, it will be adverts that are targeted at women. So you can see how they do it on a bigger scale from a TV point of view, where people know who their target audience is. So just spend some time. You don't need to spend hours. We create ideal client avatars, because Dan, we even go to like another level with professional service firms, because we don't just want to work with any of them very similarly to you. You want to work with ones that want to grow and be better and make more money, and so on and so on. So we will actually create avatars of who our target audience is. And Camilla, you can share this with Rod, but we actually created one based on Rod, and the little avatar does look like him. So that's the managing director at Camilla's firm. So we would do a little cartoon caricature of the person. They're interested in technology, they're forward thinking, they're in their 40s. So we put some sort of statistics in there of what the person might be like, again, to help people realize. So exactly like you're saying, Dan, when they read that, they'll be, oh, that's me. Maybe Lara and her team can help me with my marketing. So really getting to the bottom of who your target audience is.
Yeah, great.
Which leads on to what do they need? And I think the amount of times, I do a shed load of networking, as we were talking about earlier, Dan, probably too much. But understanding, and when I meet professional service people, particularly lawyers at networking events, they'll often talk about features rather than benefits. So my firm's been established 100 years. I think if you can say so what to a statement that somebody's going to make, you probably shouldn't be making it, and or you need to expand on it. So understanding what the person's needs are, so that when you're talking to them, you can talk in a solution-based way and being focused on what their problem is. So that's where it's really nice to use things like case studies, so people can understand, oh, well, I had a similar problem to that, and they'll understand why you're the right person to help them with it. And ultimately, in law, we are solving problems. People they don't wake up in the morning and choose to come and use a lawyer, sadly. It's a distressed purchase. They don't really want to have to use you. So you need to try and explain to them why using you is a good thing and how you're going to help them. So really focusing on what their problem is, how you're going to solve it, and focusing in on their needs.
Yeah, great.
And then coming back to the earlier point of how people want to be communicated with, I'm kind of a little bit sick to death of how much everybody focuses on digital, because not everybody is online or spending all their time there. I actually met a lawyer who was in his, must have been early 30s, who wasn't on LinkedIn. I did give him quite a hard time for not being on LinkedIn, but not everybody is. So if you're putting all of your eggs in that digital basket and saying, well, I'm just going to do social media, you will be missing a huge amount of people. And you also can't rely on them seeing your messaging. So it's thinking about, where is that target audience? Where are they most likely to see my messaging? And being in all of those places. So not just using one tactic to try and get your messaging across.
Which is what you do, Lara, is networking. And it's a brilliant balance. You're out networking, meeting people, going to these extravagant events, receiving all these awards and being photographed on stage. And you've got photos of you being photographed, receiving these rewards and being on stage. And then you then post that on social media. And it's brilliant. Yeah, you can see it.
I think
really
exactly, and it's exactly that, Dan. It's about joining the dots. So a lot of you guys, for example, might write blogs. And we actually started working with a client the other day who'd been writing blogs, and they'd just been putting them on their social media. They hadn't put them on the website. It was just bonkers. You know, so if you're going to do something like that, it's then thinking, how much can I wring out of this to get maximum value for a, spend of time? It doesn't even have to cost you money. You need to be really cautious and precious of your time, not to the point where you do nothing, but just that if you're going to do it well. I was with a firm of lawyers last week who just do employment law, and they have an academy as an aside where they train people, and they're doing loads. They're members of loads of networking events. But through the conversation, what we realized was that actually they weren't getting maximum value because they were too busy. So I said, well, actually take your, I think there are about 6 groups that you're members of, really work out which ones you should be a member of. So probably scale it back to 3. And then make sure you've got your time before you go to do your preparation, the time at the event to be present, and then the time following the event to do your follow-up. And exactly like you're saying, Dan, so you meet them at the networking event, you then tag them on a social media post, you then put them in your database so that they're getting email communications from you, and you then invite them to something else that you do. So you've suddenly got all of these different touch points.
Yeah, nice.
That mean, yeah, because you need to build that know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do that overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as they say it takes 7 touch points before somebody even knows that you exist and of what you do.
Oh, okay. Yes, I was going to say I've heard there's 20 before someone will know, like, and trust you. And Daniel Priestley's got a brilliant one, and I can't for the life of me remember it, but it's a really good one.
He's great.
It's about numbers of hours across numbers of platforms. There's like an algorithm that he's got, and which is really interesting. So if any of you are really interested in this stuff, reading his books, particularly Key Person of Influence, I think is a really good one.
Brilliant, isn't it? But then the opposite also applies. Don't spread yourself too thinly. Don't try doing LinkedIn and Facebook, and Twitter, and Snapchat and whatever else, because you're not getting the same message in front of those core people often enough, because you're spreading yourself too thinly.
Exactly that. And that comes back to that first point of who is the target audience, because actually if the target audience isn't on Twitter, there is no point in you being there. So really understanding where they are and tailoring and targeting what you're doing to that audience.
Nice.
So I use this be human one quite a lot because, and I don't know if any of you might be guilty of doing this, but again, when you meet people who work in professional services at networking events, they're often incredibly apologetic about being an accountant or a lawyer. It's kind of, I'm a lawyer. You guys are so important. You're so important. Yes, you're a distressed purchase, but actually people have to use you. What would they do without you? And there's no way.
Yeah, so you've just touched on something for me. I find people in the legal industry are the most undervalued and underappreciated professionals on the planet. They deal with such serious issues for people that, and I think they end up knowing themselves as underappreciated, and so speak from there instead of owning how great they are and how they have people get their life back, their money back, their relationships handled. It's so much more, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's quite a guy that's quite a good example. I'm still not sure. I haven't drawn a complete picture of what I think, but he does quite a good example online. So he's a chap called Paul Britton. He's a lawyer, but he does a really good job about being more than a lawyer, and he also shouts about his successes, which I think is another thing that they don't do enough in the profession of saying, this is what I've done, this is what I've achieved. But it's also remembering that actually, yes, you're a lawyer, but that's not actually who you are. So coming back to the being human, when we're doing the networking training with our clients, we talk about being interested, but also being interesting. A good friend of mine who runs a networking group called Network My Club says that you shouldn't put people under pressure to be interesting, but I'm afraid I'm going to disagree with him, because you don't have to be really exciting. You don't have to jump off of buildings for fun and do triathlons and Ironmen, and you don't have to do that stuff. But it's more about just having something to say. Because we'll have all met people in our lives that don't have anything to say, and then you're not going to make the best impression. So this comes back to the ice cream, because you might all be looking at this slide thinking, why has she got a picture of vanilla ice cream? But it's about not being vanilla. As I said to somebody the other day, you can be Cornish clotted cream with sea salt vanilla, but don't be your bog standard vanilla, because people don't tend to go to the ice cream aisle and buy that.
Well said. And the other thing is our marketing is only working if we're annoying some people.
yeah, and you can't be all things to all people.
Exactly.
So I think, be raspberry ripple, be salted caramel, be whatever you want to be, but ideally don't be plain vanilla, and be genuine. It's really easy to spot people who aren't. And if we just focus on the networking thing for 1 second, if you're really uncomfortable networking and you can't be authentic because you're very introvert and you don't enjoy it, don't do it. There are loads of other things that you can do that will benefit your business and generate business that isn't networking. So don't make yourself do it if it's not for you. So follow up, probably the easiest way to make money ever. I mean, I don't know how often you have conversations about follow up with your clients, Dan, but it's a constant frustration, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better, which just baffles me. There's a company called Insight 6 in the UK who have a specialism in professional services. They did a report, this is specific to the legal sector, last year. So they did mystery shopping across the sector nationwide. And of the inquiries they made, only 8% received a follow-up. I mean, that is insane. So 92% of inquiries, which, I mean, obviously in this instance, they weren't genuine inquiries, but could have been genuine inquiries, 92% went unfollowed up. Of the 8% that were followed up, only 39% were followed up in a pre-agreed timescale, and only 20% of them were conducted over the phone. And I think this really feeds into a fear of selling, and also maybe I'm better than being a salesperson. But I think the most important thing to remember with follow-up is that it's actually customer service. It's not selling. They've already made an inquiry. Any selling that was happening has happened at that stage. You now need to make it as easy as possible for somebody to buy what they need from you. And
great.
if you're if you're able to put yourself in your customer's shoes, is the most important thing. And don't have visions of double glazing salespeople, because that's not what you're doing. You're simply following up something that somebody they've got a problem. And you can do it in whatever way you like. But I think with a lot of people that we train on this, you don't have to phone up and say, so do you want to go ahead? That's probably too uncomfortable for most lawyers. But actually, if you've sent an email quote or estimate proposal, phoning up to say, just want to check you've received it, do you have any other questions, will open a conversation that should win you the business. And what you need to remember is 92% of the industry aren't doing that. So what do you think the chances are of you winning that piece of business over your competitors because you followed up and they didn't? It's massive.
Yeah, well, brilliant. And the other thing I was going to add was, when I go networking, I don't leave things up in the air with anyone that I've had a great conversation with. Then I say to them, why don't we set up a call and see what opportunities we can create? How does that sound? And quite often they'd say yes. I say, do you have your schedule with you? Yes. They then get their mobile phone out. I say, well, why don't we set up a call? I'm free Thursday afternoon next week. And then when I leave those events, I often will leave with as many as 10 calls with potential clients booked before I leave the event. And then whilst I'm traveling back to wherever I'm going, I then send a follow-up saying it was great to speak to you. I look forward to speaking at this time. So then they've got it written in the text, and then I'll give them a link to some information to look at before we have that call. And I found that's been amazing.
Yeah, I suspect that would probably put the fear of God into most of the lawyers out there, Dan, because that's, I love it, and absolutely I would do something like that. But I think the important thing around inquiry follow-up is the fact that somebody has a problem, and the lawyers as solution solvers are the solution to that problem. And all you've got to do is, when they make the inquiry, say, I'll give you a call in the next 24 hours to see if you've got any questions, and then just make sure you make that phone call. And
that's nice.
Pretty much, yeah, I mean, I would put my neck on the line to say I pretty much guarantee 50% of the calls you make would result in business, which has got to be a good spend of your time and effort.
Yeah, right.
To
and I like the way you give them a heads up that you're going to be calling, and it's already kind of got over that uneasiness and broken the ice, and now they're like open and welcome to receiving your call.
Completely, because if they don't want it, they can say, no, don't phone me, I'll get back to you when I'm ready, and then that's okay.
Yeah, great.
But most of the time people would say that would be great, because if I mean, whatever example you want to use, if you use moving home, people are crazy busy at the point that they're moving home. So if you can phone them up, rather than them having to think, oh, which lawyer did I speak to? Which one was quite nice? Oh, I can't remember. Or I'll just go with the last one I spoke to. It's all about making it as easy as possible for your clients.
This one on. This one's definitely an industry secret.
So as I say, I put a Q&A bit in here, but we can skip over that and crack on with yours, Dan, and save questions to the end if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that, and then we can have a mix-up of questions at the end. So thanks so much, Lara. I definitely got a few insights there, and I especially like the saying, I'll give you a call in the next 24 hours. I think that's so powerful, because what it's doing is it's testing the waters to see if they need your services without them having to say so. Just by the way they react back, you know whether there's an opportunity there or not. Really great. Love it. Okay, so let's go for it here. Here we are. So here we are, law firm owners, highly profitable marketing and team leadership secrets, hosted by Lara and me. So while listening to me, you must be wondering, who is this guy Dan, and why should I be listening to him? Which is right, you know, not many of you know me. So this is my brand, and this is what my life revolves around: greatly increasing law firm owners' profit and freeing up their time. And the reason is because one of my clients about 3 years ago that just got extraordinary results from working with me was a lawyer. And then as I understood the power of niching, I then realized, well, that's it. I'm just going to now serve lawyers. And as time's gone on, I realized it's the best decision I made, because I find lawyers are just undervalued for what they do and underpaid. And it makes me so happy to see them earning really good money whilst also getting their life back and being able to enjoy the money that they earn. So I've got over 15 years experience now, and I've worked with over 1,000 professionals. They're mainly business owners and entrepreneurs. And I'm accredited by the Credible Coach and based on client results. So they went and looked at my website, they looked at all my testimonials, and they actually contacted the people of which I've written these results that they achieved. And then they verified, yeah, they really did get those results. And so that I'm now listed on their website as a Credible Coach. I've also got an Amazon bestseller, Dream It, Choose It, Live It, went to #1. And it's recommended by Robin Sharma, who wrote the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, if any of you know that. And I'm often invited to speak to audiences around the world. This was India, this was Taiwan, this was Vietnam. This had over 4,000 people in it. Of course, this is all just before the pandemic, so things are building back up now. And I've been invited to do trainings at different banks around communication, leadership, and how to get teams working together effectively so that then they can increase their profit margins. This was an event in London. And now I get to live this amazing life in the south of Spain, where I have teams of people running my business from different places of the world. And I've got lots of time to relax, enjoy my life with my 2 children, Ariana, Mayabel, and my wife. So I am living what it is that I offer, if that makes sense. And I've recently written this book here, The Lawyer Who Gets a Cream. And I say it's a book. It's currently in digital format. And if you stay to the end, I'm happy to send you a link to this. And in this book, I cover this. And of this formula, the part that I think has enabled my clients to gain the greatest results has to be number 4, delegate in the right order. And the reason is because of this. Profitable delegation is the most vital skill a law firm owner needs to master to build a highly profitable business that also gives them a satisfying work-life balance. And this is what I've seen time and time again, because once you learn how to have team members complete work on your behalf whilst you do not work, but you get 50-60% profit margin of whatever's billed, you can have one other person doing that work for you, 2, 3, 4, 5. It becomes limitless. That whole time, you're then working a lot less whilst enjoying much higher profits. And in the legal industry, there's this whole thing. If I work less, I'm going to earn less. And it's just not true once you learn the art of profitable delegation. And in this webinar, I'm going to give you the 3 things that you must implement to ensure that you learn profitable delegation. So here we go. Number 1, clear requests. For effective results, clarity is vital. So what does a request need to have to be clear? Well, it needs to have a measurable result. So in other words, what you're asking somebody to do needs to have a clear, measurable result you want them to achieve. Secondly, in a certain time frame. If you don't agree with them a time frame that you need them to do something by, that's not a request. That's just been left up in the air, and you'll be wondering, are they going to do it in time? Are they going to deliver it to the client in time? And you don't know, should I text them? Should I leave them to it? And because you haven't set a time frame, so always set a time frame with request. And it has agreement. That's another vital. You can't just make a request of somebody and then not agree on what's just been agreed. You need their agreement, and they need to word it back if you think there's any kind of lack of clarity. And finally, no fluff. So this is all just talk. Let me give you an example. So here's one of my clients, Carlos. He's in Florida, and he's a partner of this law firm, Kaz. And he leads the law firm alongside Jenna at the top, and this is his team. He came to me 4 months ago, and he was working over 90 hours a week. He was completely burnt out. He dreamed of taking up cycling, downhill cycling, doing more of that, spending more time with his wife and just get his life back. His money was good, but he just didn't have a life. And so when we began working together, we looked at what was the cause of this. And what we discovered was that this was his internal team communication. So you can see the top right is Carlos, top left is Jenna. And all you need to understand is that everybody in their law firm was reporting both to Jenna and both to Carlos, which meant that they both had 8 people in their law firm, and they had 8 people reporting to both of them. And it was by email, by text, and Carlos was getting as many as 200 text messages a week that he had to handle. And one of the things we discovered that was missing was that he was advising and not leading. In other words, they would ask him, how do I do this? And he would just answer it. And what that did was it made them become completely reliant on him for how to do everything. So what we did was we shift everything around to this. And the key part was employing this guy here, Jonathan. And he was a senior corporate attorney, as they call them in the USA. But the difference was that instead of everybody reporting directly to Carlos and Jenna, as you can see now, he's now got more people reporting to Jonathan, and then he only has Jonathan report back to him of those 3 people. Coupled that in with also saying to everybody, right, we're now going to have weekly one-on-one meetings. And in that meeting, that's where you will share all your challenges, your breakdowns, your problems. Outside of that, do not communicate with me unless necessary. So of course you need to have communication outside of that because it's a law firm and stuff comes up, but unless necessary, do not communicate with me until we have that weekly meeting. And in doing that, it had a dramatic effect in his business. And he was then able during those weekly meetings to give clear requests. And as we can see here, this is a recent deal he closed. So his team invoiced and collected 31,000 USD. And of that, if you took away the employee costs, Carlos made 15,000 take-home profit. That's actually went into his pocket. But it only required 5 hours of billable work and 2 hours of management time. So before this, the work would come in and he would just think, oh, it's easier if I do it myself. It just takes too long to train somebody else. Let me do it myself. And of course, that's why he was constantly snowed under, doing all the work himself and was just burnt out. But this way, he's now able to greatly increase the profits that he's earning because now he's got more team members able to do this work whilst he's not working. And so he went from working 90 hours a week to 45 hours a week whilst his business is going up in earnings and profit. So you can see how powerful this is. And what made it possible was making clear requests, asking what of who. So a case comes in and he'd say, can you take this case on? Give me a report on what's needed in the next 3 hours. And then at that point, let's have a call and work out what you're going to do and by when. And speaking straight like that totally transformed his business and ability to have his team step up. Okay, number 2. Accountability, ensuring your team members succeed. The secret is to get that if your team members succeed, you succeed. And if you make your team members' success your priority, they will carry you to completely new heights. So to hold team members to account, you need agreement on who is accountable. So in other words, when you make a request, you need to agree who of you in that request is going to do what, or who else in the team needs to be accountable for that request to be completed. And you need to be in agreement in that. If parts of the request or what's required are not left being handled and you're not clear on who's handling it, then it's going to fall apart and things aren't going to happen, right? The next thing is tracking requests and promises. So once you make a request of someone, you can't just turn your back on it and just leave it floating in the air. You need a central system that basically tracks all the work you've got going on in your law firm and to know where they stand. And the people in your law firm need to be updating that on where they stand so that then you as a business owner or leader can check in on a central database and know where you stand on which project and who's doing what. What that will do is give you real peace of mind and be able to hold people to account. Because as a leader, one of the things that defines a leader is somebody that can see problems before they arise and then notifies and empowers that individual to make sure that they don't hit that problem before it's too late. And the only way you can do that is by tracking things and knowing where you stand in each project. And finally, regular short meetings or calls for reporting. So don't leave everybody just to text you as and when needed, because that constantly breaks down your weekly workflow. Instead, have scheduled times where these key individuals meet you. And in those meetings, that's where they tell you their challenges and you get to not advise them, but lead them. Say, great question. What do you think the answer is? What else do you think you can do? What do you think is missing that we need to put in place to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And in those one-on-one meetings, as you speak to people in that way, speak to your team, they develop the ability of problem solving, which means that they start to elevate their ownership of what's going to bring the money into the business and make sure your business succeeds. This is where it all stems from. It's not advising, it's from leading. Okay, so let me give you an example. So here's Kim. She came to me about 2 years ago, solo practitioner, again, burnt out, exhausted. She was working about 70 hours a week. She had bad health routines because she was binge eating, because she wasn't giving herself time to eat. She didn't have regular time scheduling for exercise and her diet was just off. And she just felt sluggish and horrible. And she built up this amazing brand where people relied on her to get the work done and done on time. But she was doing it all herself. She was totally overwhelmed and burnt out. And so what we did was we looked at, well, what's missing here? And what was missing was she didn't have team members for a start. So the first thing we did was start recruiting. And these are her team members, Cosmo and Jackie. And she implemented holding weekly calls with them, like I've been outlining. But then also she got Cosmo to set up a tracking system where they would track the work to see where they were at. And this way, Kim was able to see where they're at in each job, what they need to make sure they've got in place before it's too late, and was able to notify them ahead of time and ensure that they succeeded. And as a result of this, both Cosmo and Jackie were very quickly able to take on training from Kim in how to fill in the gaps that were missing, and started to actually carry out the legal work on her behalf. And again, this enabled Kim to work a lot less while she earned more. And here's a graph that shows her sales. So about halfway below the letter before is when Kim started working with me. And you can see 3 months later, the dramatic increase in how much she started earning each month. I mean, the difference is huge. But what is it that enabled this? Well, it was simply employing people, making straight requests of them, and then holding them to account to make sure that they carried out what it was that they needed to ensure their success, and thus ensuring the success of her law firm. And so she basically got a 310% average monthly revenue increase, an extra £192,041 revenue in 12 months. The way we calculated that was we got her average, earning for the year before when she implemented these strategies, took that away from what she earned in the following 12 months, and that's what we were left with. So that's totally extra revenue to what she was earning before, with an over 80% profit margin. I know that you law firm leaders, you're like wondering, oh yeah, but what's the actual profit margin of that? And it's about 80%. And from working over 70 hours to only 35 hours a week. Kim now has a routine where she goes to the gym 4 times a week. She does 15 minutes of yoga each morning. She's got a dog. She goes walking the dog. She's improved her health. She's cut back on drinking a lot and just feels really good about herself, and is so excited about her business because she now has a team that supports her. And now she's able to focus on business development, and she's moving into offering leadership solutions alongside her HR. So let's get on to number 3. So acknowledging the most powerful training. This is so underrated and just not implemented enough, especially in the legal industry. So effective acknowledgement. Tell someone exactly what they did well. Julia, the way you keep turning up for these calls on time every week just shows your dedication to the company. Good on you. That's it. That's all it takes. But even better when done in front of others. Excuse me. So if you give that acknowledgement in a meeting in front of others, others realize, oh, wow, being on time gets me acknowledged. Being on time gets me recognized for what I do. And you can do this for all sorts of things. Jimmy, well done for contacting that client and making sure that we had everything handled. Because of that, they felt secured. They felt like we were really taking care of them. And as a result of that, they've gone and got us a load more work coming in. Well done. That's absolutely amazing. You can see that if you did that in front of other team members, the other team members would start to get, wow, this is what it looks like for me to be appreciated. This is what it looks like for me to become an integral part of the team. And when you do this, the other team members that have heard you acknowledging others in this way will just start showing up in that way. And this saves you like time in having to, criticize people or, tell them off for what they're doing wrong. You can just start acknowledging more for what they're doing right. And it's great when it's given before corrective instruction. So before you give an instruction to tell somebody, you totally messed this up, what you do is you say, look, I just want to say that your commitment to the firm is amazing. And I see how you show up time and time again and really do your best. And I acknowledge you for that. And it's people like you with such a mindset that's going to have us all succeed. Okay, so look, something's come up to me that I feel that I need to speak to you about. You see how you did this and this? It was good, but what would have been even better is this, this, and this. If you do that, the corrective instruction gets taken on and absorbed by that individual so much quicker and faster that you repeat yourself so much less. And in doing so, your staff will get trained and show up so much more powerfully, so much more quickly, and start to run your firm on your behalf without you having to micromanage everything. And this will just start to give you amazing freedom. Yeah, and is given regularly. Give it regularly. Don't feel that, oh, if I acknowledge my team too much, they're going to start saying, oh, I want a pay rise. I want this. They might do, but if that happens, say, okay, well, let's schedule a meeting and have a talk about that, and have them sell to you why you think you should give them a pay rise. Yeah. But don't hold back from giving acknowledgement just because you fear people might manipulate you back. Because in doing that, you are greatly hindering the growth of your firm and the money that you guys can achieve. So here's an example. So Lana came to me. She had this was an accounting company. She had a team of 25 under her. She'd been dreaming of selling a company for 7 years, but she was, beyond burnt out. She was ill. She was really unwell with all sorts of physical problems. She was working like 90 hours a week. And when she came to me, she said, I hope you can help me. I don't know what I'm going to do next. And so we looked at her team, and what we found out was that she was, speaking to her team in a way that just wasn't effective. Stop doing that. This is wrong. No, you do it this way, not that way. And when we saw this, we saw that was what was missing, was her acknowledging her team members. But in 9 months, through acknowledging, setting up weekly meetings, making straight requests, and using acknowledging, in 9 months, she delegated away 90% of her workload. Now, all of you know that, or you might do or might not, you can't effectively sell a business if it relies on you to run it. And this is why she could never sell her business. But once she delegated 90% of her workload, and then started to tell people, I'm open to offers in the business, she very quickly got an offer, got into conversation, and she sold her business for over £440,000 a little while later. And as you can see here, here's a message for her. The sale was finalized at 442, bank financing confirmed. And what made this possible was just shifting her leadership from, instead of just telling people off all the time, was to sitting down with them, having these meetings, taking the time to acknowledge them for what they're doing right, so they felt valued, they felt respected, and then from there being able to give clear instruction and make clear requests. So they took over all her workload so that she could step out and then be able to sell the business. So the 3 secrets summary: 1, clear requests. For effective results, clarity is vital. Make sure it's clear. Accountability, ensuring your team members succeed. If your team members succeed, you will succeed. And finally, acknowledging, the most powerful training. If you acknowledge people for what they're doing right, they will do more of what you're telling them they're doing right, and other people will also fall in and start doing more of what you're acknowledging is the right thing. So we get into this in a bit. I was just going to offer you a copy of this, but at this moment here, I would just like to open the floor up to any questions that any of you might have.
While people are thinking, Dan, I'm just going to reflect. I think, that advice is so useful for me as well. I think we all probably work harder than we should or need to. No, I'm pretty good. I do take quite a lot of time out as well. But that acknowledging is lovely. I definitely try and do it, but being a bit more mindful of it. And I really like the point you made about giving that acknowledgement before suggesting something could be done in a slightly different way, because it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes you just need things like a mirror held up in front of you, don't you, to reflect on how things could be done differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so easy to be annoyed at what somebody's done and want to just bark at
them. But I think as well, your Carlos example with that org chart, I think it'd be really interesting, any of the lawyers that are on the call, if you've sat down and done that yourself. I've actually got an operations director joining me this week for exactly that reason, because everybody comes into me, and it's just not an effective use of my time. It's not good for the staff. It'd be better for them to go to somebody else. So I think that spending the time doing that and seeing where you could change it would be really powerful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, chain of command. And never have somebody that has 2 managers, it never works, because you always have like a difference of opinion between 2 different managers on how something should be done. And then that individual's just never left clear. Yeah.
No, and it's doubling up on the work, isn't it, really? You're having 2 people doing the same job.
Yeah. But also the biggest game changer is just not leaving you to be communicated to all at any time of the day. like have your office hours and make it agreement that no business communications are to happen outside these hours between anyone unless an emergency. But then on top of that, schedule individual meetings with the key team members so that then they save all their communication for that time. I mean,
I think that I'm going to struggle with that one. I absolutely hear what you're saying, but I'm the worst one with our WhatsApp group at 9 o'clock at night. Oh, I've just thought about this. So yeah, it's you're absolutely right, but it's changing a way of doing things, isn't it?
Yeah, and the problem is with that, it's like you never get to fully rest and go into ease. And then the problem is the team members also are feeling the same. Like as soon as that they receive that text, they get triggered back into creation mode and doing mode, right?
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Whereas you want everybody to be really well rested and then switch on and power up at that time in the morning.
So yeah. I don't know if we've got any questions. Nobody's popping anything in there. Does anyone want to share something they've done that's been similar along the lines that Dan said and successes or otherwise? Or if there aren't any questions, we can wrap up, I guess, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any insights any of you have got from today would be also useful. Somebody needs to leave. All good. Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah, I think we'll probably wrap up then.
Yeah, great. So, Lara, how can people find you? What's the best way?
LinkedIn.
Okay, great.
LinkedIn. I think you're probably all on LinkedIn, given that you got onto the meeting. I think I'm probably connected with most people. Catherine's already on it and has sent me a LinkedIn request while we've been on the call. So yeah, I'm always happy to chat to people about any marketing problems that they need a solution for.
Yeah, nice. Really good. Really good. And so for me, if you wanted a copy of this here, then the best thing is send me a connection request on LinkedIn. And this book basically covers my years and years of research of exactly what's needed to gain around about an extra 200,000 revenue in whilst dramatically increasing your profits and being able to free up your time. So if that sounds like something you'd like a copy of, just send me a connection request, or if we're already connected, send me a message. There's my LinkedIn there. And also, if you're interested, I'm happy to send you a link to schedule a quick call and we can break down like where you're at now, where you would love to be, and let's see what you really need to do to create and live that lifestyle you've always dreamed of. And then if after that you're interested to know more, then we can talk more. But yeah, thank you for attending this today. And yeah, I look forward to seeing all your posts online. Any final words, Lara?
Thanks, Dan. No, just implement what we've said.
Yeah, amazing.
And thank you, Camilla. We have recorded it, Camilla, so we can share it with Rod.
Great. Okay, fantastic. I'll work out with Lara where I'll load that up and how we'll share it. Yeah, great. Brilliant. Lara, you're a flipping star. It's great. Speak soon.
Speak soon. Bye, guys.
Cheers. Bye.